What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? Welcome to today's video. Should you buy an Rx8 as a track car? Let's see. Does your Rx8 start? If yes, you should consider it. So, I'm going to back up my Rx8 here into a little bit of an easier spot for us to see. We just fired it up cold. We got to let this thing warm up before you turn it off, guys. If you don't want to have to deal with a flooded Rx8, make sure that you warm your car up all the way before you shut it off. And yes, it's an Rx8. And it will hot start, I promise. Alright, so, track car things. And we'll start with Mazda Rx8 things, right? This is a 2004 Mazda Rx8. Don't let its deceivingly striking, or don't let its striking good looks deceive you. I paid not a lot of money for this car. This is the good side of the car. The stripes weren't on it when I got it. The brakes weren't on it when I got it. The lowering springs weren't on it when I got it. And this is the bad side. We got dents, faded headlights, you name it, okay? This is still a cheap Rx8. The engine has over 100,000 miles. The car has over 100,000 miles, right? Not too abnormal in the world of Rx8s, okay? So, you're shopping for Rx8s, you're shopping for a budget track car. Rx8s have hit your radar because they're, one, cheaper than 350Zs. Two, everyone says they're the superior rotary chassis, which I 100% agree with. And three, there's probably a bunch of them for sale because usually the people that own them don't want them anymore. Okay. Those three reasons aside, in a track car, you should look for a few things, okay, for you. One, are you comfortable in the driver's seat of the car, okay? If you're 6'4" like me, don't go buying a Miata, right? You're not going to pass the broomstick test. My head sticks above the windshield, etc., right? If you're 5 foot, don't buy a Corvette. You're going to have to scoot the seat weight forward. It's a big old car, right? So an Rx8, I'd say very much so fits the average human. Okay, you have a back seat area. The back seat, or the front seat, can go really far back, far enough back for me, who is 6'4", and then also can go far enough forward for somebody like one of my friends. She drives an Rx8. She's also very short, and she runs the seat really far forward. And there's plenty of room for you to fit in this car. Now, here's the next thing that I want you to notice while we're focusing on driver position. Driver position, when you're driving the car, is very important to the feel and interaction and feedback that you get from the car as you're driving it, okay? Notice, with this Rx8, I'm going to take a couple steps back, that the driver's seat is physically almost the center between the front and rear wheel, okay? And what that means is as you corner in your Rx8, okay, you are going to be at the center of rotation for the car, which is going to make driving the car feel more confidence-inspiring, okay? Another example, my Corvette. You sit all the way back on the tire. By the time your body, traverses the corner, the center of rotation of the car has already made the corner, right? So that's why when you're driving one of those cars, they feel tail-happy, which they are. But they feel more sketchy and they feel more tail-happy is because you are following the car through the corner as a driver. You are not with the car or in front of that rotation as a driver, right? If you're driving a big, long sedan, you're in front of that. So you get to feel the corner and the car follows you through, right? Just a perspective thing. People who drive race cars and stuff all the time can comment on that more, but I feel like being in the center of the axles is definitely a more comfortable position to drive a car harder and faster, in my mind, than somebody else. Okay, so, driving position aside, get a manual Rx8. Come on, if you're going to have a track car, it needs to be a stick. They're more reliable, easier, whatever. I do understand, though, I have a buddy in a wheelchair. He has an automatic RX-7 rally car, and if the situation requires you to have an automatic, then by all means, get out on track. But if you have the capability or physical ability to drive a stick, learn how to drive a stick. It's much more satisfying to road gears. Okay, so now we're going to talk about drivetrain parts for your Rx8 for the track. First things first, we'll start with the rotary engine. For those of you who don't know much about a rotary engine, rotary engines have triangles inside of them that spin around really fast. So rotary engines have triangles inside of them that spin around really fast. Rotors is what they're called. They look just like this. Okay, there's two of them in your standard rotary engine. As you can see, don't call me biased, but I might be a rotary engine lover. We've got a lot of rotary stuff around here. Rx7s, Rx8s, trucks. This is what a rotary engine looks like, stripped down outside of the car. No, this is not an Rx8 engine, but to give you a perception of size, imagine you had a milk crate. That's how big your rotary engine is. The rotary engine in an Rx8 is substantially buried behind the front axle and pretty much in the transmission tunnel. Your rotary engine is going to be about the same diameter as a transmission bell housing, so don't expect to be seeing heads, cams, all sorts of crazy stuff, headers, big intakes and stuff in your Rx8. Unless you bought one that was LS swapped, which would be a fantastic car, you won't see major engine parts. When you look in your Rx8 engine bay, you're probably going to see a cover on here that says multi-side port injection, Renesis. You'll see a battery cover, giant air box right here. Okay, so a rotary engine, when you take it to the track, your Rx8, and you're going to take it there and you're going to beat on it, and I suggest you keep the RPMs above 5,500 the whole time. That's where these things make the power. The things I would do before I took my Rx8 to the track for the first time, okay, you can take a bone stock one there. You're going to have a great time. If you're a beginner driver, you probably won't have any issues, okay? Throw some spark plugs in it. If it's been like a traffic monger, so to speak, somebody's just been lugging it around in traffic, maybe throw some coils in it because they get heat soaked. The coils get heat soaked really bad when the engines just sit in traffic. But typical maintenance, stock coils, plugs, change the oil, make sure you're topped off on all the rest of your fluids, take it to the track and have fun, okay? As far as the drivetrain goes, especially if you're a beginner driver. Now, we're going to step into the, all right, I'm an intermediate driver. I've been to the track a few times, and you're really going to be pushing this thing pretty hard. What are some issues that you're going to see? First issue that you're going to see with the drivetrain when you start beating on it at the track is cooling. My car at the track this past weekend, I have a bigger radiator, I have some ducting and a nice under tray, but I still have the stock air box and a stock battery location. After about a lap and a half, 2 laps of National Corvette Museum, which is a huge track, lots of long straights where this car is getting wound out at high RPM for a long bit of time, I could make my temperature gauge climb very rapidly, and I would need to take a cool down and just chill for like 10 to 15 seconds. It'd cool right back down, and I could get right back into beating on it. But you have to consider, that's me, a reasonably experienced driver, keeping this car above 6,000 to 6,500 RPM for a sustained duration on a 100-degree day, okay? Really beating on it. Now, if you're out there driving the car at 7/10 and you're new, you probably won't see that issue, but as you start to beat on these cars really hard, you're going to see cooling issues arise. And you may not see those arise on the street. If you're just buying this car as like a fun street car, you probably won't see any issues with it, but when you're on the track beating on it, there's just too much stuff, i.e. this battery, the air box, your engine. The car isn't really designed to evacuate air out the hood. As you can see, there's no vents from the factory, but also there's no way for the radiator air to get out of there. And it's just seemingly ineffective for a crazy track car. Okay, so improvements, and if you're buying an Rx8, have one, you've watched this video, I suggest you subscribe to the channel because this car is going to get mad overhauled to be a very effective, super cheap track car. Okay, super cheap is the goal. Keep the consumables low. And I think we can do that with the Rx8 with some tweaks and some mild fun as a mechanic. Okay, so the first things first, cooling, like I said. The second and only other thing that I'll say drivetrain-wise, okay, if you went through and tweaked some stuff and everything's functioning properly, that you're going to run into an issue with is you're going to think your car is slow. And yes, Rx8s are notoriously, and I mean they physically are, they don't make a lot of horsepower. They're pretty heavy for how much horsepower they make. And there's really no good way to pick up the power. You can do a turbo kit on one of these. A lot of people will say you'll blow the Renesis up. I've seen a lot of people have good success with some of the Greddy, like front mount turbos and low boost, and just picking up that mid-range, making like 250 to 260 wheel horsepower will wake this car up a ton versus the 160 that you have currently. But where this car shines is not so much in its drivetrain, and if you bought one with an LS or a 4-cylinder or something crazy in it, kudos to you for getting a more reliable car, even though I think Rx8s in stock form are plenty reliable. But you won't complain about the power. So really the only two drivetrain issues: cooling, lack of power. Alright, the next thing, the superior chassis of the Rx8, superior to every other rotary car out there. No, I didn't point at an FC or an FD. I don't have one here, but I would have pointed at them, I promise. Okay, the Rx8, 50-50, 50-50, all the weight distributions match. This thing drives fantastic. Mid-corner, you need a little bit of extra front-end bite. Just blip off the throttle, it'll load the front, it'll turn right in. Need a little bit of extra drive out of the corner, just keep it matted. Okay, the thing just about drives itself, and it drives itself in a corner, but you got to earn the speed through that corner because this thing's fairly slow, like I said. So, suspension and brakes. I was madly impressed with my previous Rx8. I had a black one on stock suspension, tearing it up at the tail of the Dragon. The things handle great. I think the rear is a little bit soft. I was able to bottom out my rear suspension pretty decent with two guys in the car. But I think with a good set of dampers and some nicer springs, you can really wake up the suspension in this car. My car here has a set of tine lowering springs. You're not going to break the bank with those, stock dampers, and then it has a cheap $100 front sway bar. Now that's pretty much it in the wake of suspension, and this thing shreds, and I didn't have a single issue with it on the track. And that right there, you're looking at what, $400? I mean, lowering springs are pretty cheap. They're going to stiffen it up just a little bit, make the thing handle fantastically. Okay, brakes. Take a set of stock rotors, stock calipers, grab a set of your preferred track brake pad. I have Hawk HP Pluses in this car, and go out there and tear it up. I would also suggest flushing the brake fluid, just because these are big single piston calipers. Flush the brake fluid with a Motul like RBF 660 track brake fluid, or at least flush the brake fluid with .4, which is a higher boiling temperature brake fluid. Reason being, you may not lose grip in your pads, but if you boil the fluid, you can't compress air, and air will not give you an effective braking action on the track. So I swapped this with Motul RBF 660. Didn't have a single lick of brake fade out of NCM, and in reality, the car's not super fast, right? So you're not really biting into the brakes too hard for long durations. It's not like you're trying to slow a Corvette down from 150 miles an hour. You're really trying to slow your Rx8 down from like 105 to about 95 to take that corner right in front of you. So, at least that was at NCM, right? So now, let's talk tires and wheels, okay? I would highly suggest, if you're a beginner driver, not a big deal, but on an Rx8, makes a huge difference, and any car makes a huge difference, I think, over performance coilover upgrades. Spend money on good tires and wheels, get a good track set of tires and a good track set of wheels. And what that's going to do is going to not only reduce your rolling weight, but increase your grip tenfold. Doesn't matter how much power, suspension, sway bar, weight reduction you have. If you can't connect it to the ground, you're not going to go fast. So on my car, I grabbed a set of fake TE37s. We threw a set of Falcon RT660s on it. This is the wear after one track day. Really not bad at all. No crazy excessive wear on the insides or outs. I would also suggest going with a square setup. So for my, especially if you're on a budget track guy, for my wheel setup over here is a 17x9 plus 25 with a 245/40/17 all the way around. Reason to have a square setup: unlike my Corvette, on this car, you can then rotate your tires front to back. You can get a lot better wear out of your tires over the course of a few seasons, okay? So, with that, we've pretty much covered everything that you need to know to make your bone stock Rx8 a very capable track car, okay? Very capable. And like I said earlier in the video, stay tuned with this Rx8 over the course of the next year, the next 6 months. Don't plan on selling it. This is my track rat, going to be the beast of a track car for me. And we're going to make this thing super fast, and it's going to rip. And we're going to be doing some exhaust stuff to free it up, do some intake stuff to free it up, maybe cut a big hole in the hood and do some science on getting the hot air out to help cool it, and this, that, and the other. So that is that's my crazy opinions on the Rx8 as a track car. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the superior rotary chassis. Feel free to argue with me in the comments about how badass and awesome your FD is and how fast your FD is with the twin turbos and sequential and the single turbo FC that you REW swapped and did a whole bunch of suspension mods and this, that, and the other. And I'm still going to tell you that this thing, well sorted, is king. I've driven all three of those cars really fast in similar conditions, driven FDs with fancy suspension, driven FCs with fancy suspension, and I'm still telling you, like I said, I'm not a pro driver, but for the bang for your buck, I'd rather have 10 grand in one of these than 10 grand in an FC, or even you can't get an FD for 10 grand, you'd have to be pushing it around the track. So that is my 2 cents on why you should get an Rx8, or I guess why you should or shouldn't. You get to make the decision. Tell me in the comments below if I convinced you that this is a fantastic car. If I convinced you that this car sucks, tell me below as well. Because, frankly, I don't think they suck. I think that mine sounds like a vacuum cleaner because I have the stock exhaust. But I'll give you some revs. It's warmed up now. Sounds pretty good. I think it sounds pretty good for a Bowman stock exhaust. Notice we got a little extra hazy smoke coming out of there. We got 1 ounce per gallon premix in this thing with the oil metering pump still functioning. So keeping it safe, burning all sorts of extra oil. But yeah, Rx8 track car, go get one. Tell me in the comments why you think you should get one. Tell me in the comments anything I can do to improve this one that you may have prior experience with. Talk to a few of my buddies. As you saw some of the pictures of the cooling that have put vents in these cars. And yeah, I think this is a fantastic car. And if you've made it to the end of the video, I'll tell you exactly how much money I have wrapped up in this thing. So I bought the car running but not well, and not revving above 6 grand. A few other issues with it from somebody I know for 2,000 bucks. Okay, you can find Rx8s, I just checked in this video before I uploaded the video, somewhere in here on Marketplace, and they're probably going to be more expensive now if more people watch this video, but I can find an Rx8 that needs a little bit of work, maybe runs, maybe doesn't, maybe whatever, reasonable shape, from anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000. Okay, that's the gist of getting you something that you could use as a track rat Rx8. Okay, now I'm not going to say that the engine in your car is healthy and good to go. As far as I'm concerned, this one could have blown up last weekend at the track. But keep in mind, a good Rx8 rebuilt engine is probably going to run you 3,500 bucks or 4 grand. And if you're going to put that engine in your car, you're not going to have issues with the engine again. Like, it's going to be good. So if you replace the engine, you've now invested in a car, right? You're going to have, say you bought one for 2 grand. I'm getting off track. Say you bought one for 2 grand, put a $4,000 engine, you have a $6,000 car. You put $2,000 worth of suspension, tires, wheels on it. You have what? 2, 6, an $8,000 car, and your $8,000 car is going to shred. It's going to be really reliable. It's going to be easy on tires. It's going to be awesome to drive, awesome car to learn with. And at the end of the day, if you have an Rx8 with a good running engine and all that stuff, you can probably sell it for between $6,000 to $7,000 because that's generally what they're worth, in my opinion. So, with that, $2,000 car, $200 radiator, $1,000 worth of tires, and we'll say $500 to $600 to $700 worth of wheels. Some of my time to clean it, I threw the stripes on it, make it look nice. We're going to say we got 4 grand in this car. I went out and did a full 5-session, 30 minutes a session track day with no issues. Ripped it up, besides the car getting a little bit hot. And it's ready to go to the next one, right? So, Comment below with any questions. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something with me rambling here, showing you some pictures of some cars, showing you some pictures of some RX8s, and hopefully we don't see too many RX8s coming up for sale because you guys are all buying them because they're epic. So thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Keep it rad.